Hey guys, Jess here from Knockout Print Shop, and today I have a video for you on my top tips for using your planner to help you reach your health and fitness goals. This is the third time I've filmed this introduction because I just had coffee at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I feel like my heart is racing and I'm short of breath. I never have 2 coffees a day and I'm a little bit like, oh my God, talking so fast. So I'm gonna try to slow down and breathe through this video. All right. So I wanted to do a video for you guys about how to best use your planner as a tool for health and fitness success. I know a lot of people every year set health and fitness goals and they want to use their planner to help them achieve those goals. And I often, unfortunately, see people kind of spinning their wheels and trying to figure out how to do this and getting caught up in just really using their planner in not always the most effective functional ways when it comes to using it again as a tool for health and fitness success. So I have some ideas. I have a little process or a concept here that I'm gonna give to you as how you can better use your planner for health and fitness. So we have the 3 A's. This is me doing my best Leslie Knope Parks and Rec kind of imitation. I have the 3 A's of health and fitness success using your planner. All right, so number 1 is assess. So the first thing you want to do, no matter what area of your life you're trying to change, is assess where you are at. That's like why when we set our goals for the new year in all areas, it's good to do some kind of assessment or inventory. Because as humans, we are notoriously horrible at knowing where we are at. We either dramatically overestimate, underestimate, think we're doing better or worse than we actually are. So we need to spend some time stepping away from ourselves and really put pen to paper and track some data. So we want to get real numbers, get real honest perspective on where we are at so we can go through the rest of this process. So I highly recommend the first step, the first thing you do is spend a week to 2 weeks. Really, I don't think you need to do much more than that, but a week to 2 weeks assessing these various areas. Okay, so area number 1 is your sleep. Sleep health is incredibly important to your health and your wellness and even weight loss goals. So you really want to make sure that at some point in your health and fitness journey, you are addressing this. But as we go through this general assessment, that is one thing you want to pay attention to. So we want to assess your quantity and your quality of sleep. So this doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need some fancy device. You don't need an Apple Watch. You don't need a Fitbit. You don't need some kind of sleep tracker. You can simply write in your planner your bedtime and your rise time each day. Do that for about a week or 2. Look at that and see how much sleep you're getting. You can also make a note about the quality of your sleep. Did you sleep soundly? Did you wake up refreshed? Did you have a hard time falling asleep or getting up? Did you wake up throughout the night? Don't need anything fancy to do this, just your pen and paper in your planner, maybe a little sleep icon sticker, and then just simply mark your rise time, your bedtime, and any notes about the quality of your sleep. Take a couple weeks and assess that. The next thing you want to analyze is your daily movement. Now, I'm not talking exercise, a structured exercise program, your fitness classes, nothing like that. I'm talking about your daily movement. How much activity, time on your feet, walking around are you getting on a daily basis? Again, you don't need a device for this. You don't need an Apple Watch or a Fitbit. Unless you have one and want to do that, you could track steps. That is a good way to do this, but you can also just note on your planner, maybe use like a little shoe icon sticker and you say, today I was sedentary. Like I basically sat on my butt all day, working in the car and coming home and watching TV. You could maybe make a note sedentary or active, like it was a day that out and about with your kids, you went for a walk, you're going to a museum, you were super active, you're running around doing chores. And just using a descriptive word each day will help you get a sense of, am I like sitting on my butt most days or am I up and about a lot? Now, if you have a tendency to not be very good at subjective kind of assessments, you may want to use some kind of step tracking device like a Fitbit, Apple Watch, or your phone. Okay, and the third thing you want to track is probably the most complicated one, and that is your nutrition or your eating habits, because this is not as simple as calories and macros and portions. You want to take a deeper look at the different elements of your eating habits. Now, you don't have to use our food journal, but I do think this is a really great tool as an assessment, assessment tool to help you figure out kind of where are the issues at, or the roadblocks or the challenges. Because while yes, there is some validity to, maybe our health issues are related to eating too much or eating too much of a certain type of food, Really, we want to dig a little deeper here and figure out what the real culprit is, because it's usually a lot more complex and multifaceted than that. So I'm not a huge proponent of counting calories as an assessment, counting macros as an assessment, or counting points. I'd rather see people get in and figure out the nuances of their eating habits. So in our food journal, what you're going to look at here, if you decide to do something like this, whether you buy our food journal or you just kind of note this in your planner on your own somewhere in your weekly spread, is what your hunger levels before you're eating, the times that you're eating, your fullness level, your mood, the foods that you ate, who were you with, how fast were you eating, did you feel satisfied? All of these different pieces of eating have a huge impact on our overall health. And this will give you a much more detailed assessment of where you are. You don't have to do a journal like this for a very long time to kind of get a good picture of where you're at. 1 week, 2 weeks max, and you're good. And I think, in fact, our food journal is a 2-week journal, so there's only enough pages for 2 weeks. This, I think, if you're gonna food journal in this detailed of a way, doing something with an insert like this is ideal, because it is gonna take up so much writing space. If you're trying to integrate a food journal like this into your weekly spread, that might be a little too complicated and messy. Now, if you don't want to use a separate tool, if you just want to have your planner, you could somewhere on your weekly spread maybe simply note your meals, like what you ate. Doesn't have to be the calories or portions, the time you ate, and any notes that you want to write about fullness levels, who you were with, how you felt, things like that. That could go in a regular planner if you're not using too much of your regular weekly spread for your task lists and things like that. You could do this in a bullet journal. You could do this in a separate notebook, just somewhere to get you consistently, I would say again, a minimum of a week, max of 2 weeks, of some really good nutrition habits, eating habit data. So that is going to be hugely helpful in figuring out where your roadblocks are. Okay, and the last thing you want to track is your exercise. Now, if you are somebody right now that's not exercising at all, that's totally okay. Don't need to track it. You know where you're at. If you're like, well, I think I'm kind of consistent, I would take a week or two to go and put in your planner, maybe a little dumbbell icon or whatever icon you like, and mark what your scheduled workout is and if you completed it. So you can see over a 14-day period, did you do your, 4 or 6 scheduled workouts, or did you not do them? So I think, again, assessing where you are right now is going to help you figure out what to do next. So assessment part of it, we're looking at sleep, we are looking at daily movement, nutrition habits, and exercise consistency. So use your planner again for a short period of time to analyze those things, and then we go to the next step. Okay, our next step is analyze. So now we want to take all that data that we have in our planner, notebooks, whatever we're using, and we want to look at it and figure out what is going on. A lot of people use their planner and they're tracking things and they're, marking things off in habit trackers and putting stickers down and using it to plan workouts, but they're not going back and looking at the data and seeing where they're at. So you need to take all that data that you gather on a weekly basis and make it useful to you so you can make progress. Because tracking something kind of on and not paying attention to the numbers and not paying attention to your consistency and using that data is kind of fruitless. So we want to make sure you're effectively using your planner. So take some time after that 2-week period of assessing things, sit down and look at the data. Is your sleep under 7.5 hours a night consistently? Okay, so that's not ideal. We want to be around 7.5 hours on average, 7 to 8 hours. Are you having trouble staying asleep? Are you having trouble with the sleep health or quality? Okay, note that. Then you want to look at your daily movement. Are you okay, every single day I wrote down that I was completely sedentary. All right, well, maybe that's something we want to address, is how much or how little you are moving throughout the day. Then you're going to want to look at that detailed nutrition journal, that food log, and look for the major challenges. Is it that you are waiting too long to eat and you're starving, so you're eating way more than you would if you would have ate when you were just moderately hungry? Are you struggling to stop when you're full? Are you making food choices that are mostly processed food or convenience food? And looking at the consistencies of those things and looking at what's getting in your way of you reaching your health and fitness goals. Then, of course, looking at your exercise routine and going, okay, I scheduled 6 workouts in the past 2 weeks and I went to 2. All right, what is going on here? Why am I not being consistent with that? What can I do differently? So the whole point of analyzing all this data is to figure out where your biggest challenges are, your biggest roadblocks, where you're getting in your own way, and then figure out what you need to do. So when you're trying to decide what to do with this data, you need to figure out two things: what you're willing to do now that you have this awareness, and what will drive the most impact. Now, what drives the most impact doesn't mean that you're going to pick one thing and all of a sudden overnight you're going to be reaching your goals. It only might move the needle closer to your goals at these tiny little millisteps and these little baby increments. But you want to pick something that's a little tiny bit uncomfortable. It's not super hard to do, but it's a little uncomfortable. I often ask people, what are you willing to do? What habit do you want to focus on with health and fitness when I'm working with somebody? And they'll always say to me, I want to drink more water. And I think that is a valid goal. I think it's a beneficial health thing to focus on. But when you look at people's bigger goals of health and fitness, which usually has to do with getting stronger, moving better, losing some weight, water is not going to have the big impact that we're looking for over the long term, like maybe changing some eating habits are, getting more mobile and movement in your day, adopting a consistent exercise routine. So I'm not discounting that drinking more water per day is beneficial to your health. It totally is. But I think when you're setting health and fitness goals based on the data that you've acquired and analyzing where your biggest roadblocks are, I highly encourage that you take something that's a tiny bit out of your comfort zone and then work on that in little tiny bits. So again, what are you willing to do when you look at this data and there's roadblocks in your way, and what's going to have the impact that you're looking for? So picking purposeful actions, not just actions that people say you should do. So what for you is relevant? Is water relevant for you? Are you like never drinking water? Well, maybe that's important to your overall health and well-being. But is there things in your data analyzing process that you learned are more getting in your way more than that? So that's just kind of my shtick on that, because I know a lot of people want to track water, and I think that it's not a bad thing, but there's a lot more that any individual can do based on their own lifestyle and challenges to move the dial closer to their health and fitness goals. Okay, and our last A is action. So we have our planner as an assessment tool. We look back on our planner as a way to analyze and figure out where we're going. And then we need to use our planner as a support tool to setting actions into play, or setting actions into motion. I think again, we get in the planner world and in planning and productivity in general, we get sometimes caught in planning. Planning can end up being almost a form of procrastination. Well, I'm going to plan out my fitness routine, I'm going to plan out my meals, but that doesn't necessarily always lead to action. So our goal really is to take our planner and have it as a support tool when it comes to health and fitness, obviously, to help us, build a plan so that we can put these things into action. So that's why I put number three's A is action. So how can we take what we're willing to do and what will have some good impact on our goals and put that into action? So let's take the sleep one, for example. Let's say you track your sleep, so use your planner to track your sleep, and you find on a consistent basis you're only getting 5 hours of sleep. Well, that's not ideal. Again, we want to move that closer to 7.5 as our ideal kind of sleep time. So what do we need to do? It's not like all of a sudden you're just going to sleep 7.5 hours every night regularly when you haven't been doing that for months. So you want to think about, well, earlier bedtime, right? That's going to give us more hours to sleep. Well, easier said than done. Okay, I'm just going to tell myself I'm going to go to bed at 9 instead of 10 or something like that. It goes into like digging a little deeper and going, what is my PM routine like? What are the things in my nighttime routine that are preventing me from getting to bed at a time that would allow me to get enough sleep? And finding something in that routine that you are willing to tweak that's going to make, again, be impactful and start to move that closer to your goal. So maybe it's you're on your phone too long or technology too long. Okay, well, I'm going to start, maybe you're on your phone till 11, maybe it's in your bedroom. The first goal I'm going to set is putting my phone outside my bedroom. And then using your planner, maybe noting it in a habit tracker or using a little phone icon as a reminder every day, put phone down by 8, and having that visual there as a cue. So I think that's how your planner can help step you into action as a little reminder. Another example might be, let's go to the nutrition one, because that's a big one. we looked through all this data, and maybe your biggest issue is that you are willing and ready to address is that you're eating like 6 times a day. Now, when I say eating, I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be a sit-down meal. Maybe you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but you're also grabbing a snack in between because that's what you've been told to do. I'm not a huge proponent of 6 meals a day. I could do a whole nother video on that. But let's say you're like, I'm eating kind of like throughout the day a lot. Well, what is going on? Why am I eating breakfast and then eating a snack and then eating lunch? Why am I doing that? Is that working for me? Maybe I need to be altering my eating frequency. I usually recommend to people that are eating 6 times a day, unless you have health concerns that you need to do that you shift to 3 to 4 times a day with no snacks. So let's say you're like, okay, I'm finding that by like kind of grazing all day, I'm never really satisfied, I'm really disconnected from my hunger, I am making food choices based out of convenience because I'm having to eat on a kind of a regular basis. So maybe you say to yourself, all right, I'm willing to go down to eating 4 meals a day. So then you go, okay, well, what's that going to look like? Because I was used to eating 6 meals a day or eating 6 times a day. Well, okay, maybe I take my morning snack and have that at lunch. So now you don't have to eat less, but you're just eating less times. You start to get your body used to having longer times without eating and having a more nourishing, satisfying meal. So that's one example. I probably should talk about this more in another video to make that whole piece make sense. But let's say you are constantly eating when you're starving. You're like, I looked at my journal and every time I'm eating, I am like famished. So I'm waiting way too long to eat. So maybe your baby step is, I am willing to eat after 30 minutes of feeling hungry or an hour of feeling hungry. I'm willing to honor my hunger earlier or sooner than I am now. Now, these things might not seem like they're going to move the dial closer to your health and fitness goals, but they will, because if you're not eating when you're starving, you're going to make food choices that are more in line with your goals than being like, oh my God, Snickers, get in, you're starving, hangry. So again, taking that data and then putting it to use, figuring out what you're going to do, and using your planner to remind you. So maybe if that's you, you want to address a nutrition habit, that what you start to do then is you track your eating time. So let's say I'm going to eat breakfast at 8 and I'm going to eat lunch at noon. I'm going to eat like an afternoon food at 4 and then I'm going to eat dinner at 6, whatever. And maybe you use your planner to, at minimum for a while, remind you of your meal times, and whether you're doing that tracking before or after the fact. A lot of times it's hard to pre-plan when you're going to eat until you've gotten into a routine. So maybe you note in your planner instead, let me kind of reverse and say, or kind of go backwards and say, maybe you know hunger times. So, okay, I'm going to use my planner for a while now that I know hunger is an issue. I'm going to know what time I get hungry and then tell myself I'm going to eat in an hour. And so somewhere in your planner, you could write this down each day. Got hungry at 10 a.m., ate at 11. And this is going to continue to give you that data and that reminder. So you can use maybe a habit tracker to note that you were eating in accordance with what your kind of like goal was. You could use within your day-to-day planning. Maybe you again track the time that you were hungry and what time you ate your meal at. So you could continue with a food journal in a more purposeful way than just continuing to log food. Because I think a lot of times people get in this habit of like, I need a food log, and they're constantly logging food, but there's not a means to an end. We want to be able to go back and use that as a reference, not as a thing to beat ourselves up with, but a thing to be curious about and figure out what we need to do to improve our eating habits so we can be healthier and reach our goals. Okay, I think that was it. Is that it? I think it is. Okay, so long story short, we have 3 A's. We have assess, use your planner as an assessment and a tracking tool for 1 to 2 weeks. Analyze all that data, schedule a planning session with yourself, to a reflection session to go and look at all of that data, figure out what you're willing to do and what's going to have the most impact on you long term, and then action steps. Looking at that and going, okay, with knowing that I want to address X, what is my action plan? And using your planner as like a reminder, a continuation tracker, but now with a more nuanced kind of focus to it. But I think we're using it as a reminder, using it as a scheduler. So maybe you're like, my workout consistency isn't so great. Well, what happened? Maybe I only did 2 of my 6 workouts I was scheduled to do in that 2-week period. Well, it's because I didn't consider this appointment I had, or that I was going to get out of work late. And so I wasn't planning my workouts in a way that would make me more successful. Okay, well, how can I use my planner to better look at my day and plan my workouts accordingly? So I think using it as a scheduler, so you're better at building your day to prioritize your health and fitness, using it as a reminder, seeing that visual of that little shoe icon, oh, I better go take my movement break, that little maybe like fork and knife icon to go, okay, I need to remember, eat when I'm hungry after an hour of being hungry, using it again as maybe a more nuanced, detailed tracker. So I think instead of just aimlessly tracking things and feeling like you're not getting anywhere, taking your kind of whole thing that you're doing and looking at it more closely and realizing what is and isn't working, and scaling back and focusing on less. So again, assess, analyze, action. Don't try to focus on all of these things at one time. You don't want to focus on changing your bedtime routine, changing your eating habits, changing your exercise schedule. The human psyche does not like that much change at one time. I know it can feel like you're not doing enough when you focus on baby steps, but I'm telling you, when you can really hone your attention on one thing, you'll get more automated and master it faster and gain momentum. So if you're having issues with different eating habits, focus on one eating habit, really hyper focus on that. Get that in a groove, deal with the ups and downs of that experience, and then move on to the next thing. So don't try to do it all. All right, so those are my 3 kind of major tips that you can use to help make your planner more effective for health and fitness and reaching your goals this year. So let me know if you have any questions. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. And that is all. I hope you guys are doing awesome with your health and fitness goals already for 2020. I know it's only January, but hopefully this is helpful and you are already on track to do what you are setting out to do. So comment below with any questions, and I will see you guys in the next one.